All right, today's guest really needs no introduction. He's Tom Wortman. He's a black belt under AOJ. He's won Master Worlds. He's won Pan Ams, Euros, and American Nationals. We're lucky enough to have him up here teaching and training in Anchorage at the moment. So here it is, Tom Wortman. So he's got plans today?
No, this was mostly it. She was supposed to work yesterday, but then they were like, we don't need you. So she got off early yesterday, so it was
nice.
able to get stuff done.
You guys had a nice long weekend?
Yeah.
Nice. What do you guys mean? You guys are leaving, in a couple months?
Like
or?
7 weeks, 6 weeks.
Okay. Is there a set date?
Kind of. Her contract ends like 6 weeks from now or so, and then we're going to Mexico. Like our friend's birthdays are on July 4th, so we're going to Mexico, and also our anniversary is around July 4th. So
nice. So one-stop shop.
Yeah, kind of thing. So
nice.
His birthday, and then our anniversary, and then right after we get back, we'll probably head out.
Yeah.
Not sure where yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna spend time here while you figure it out, or you're just gonna figure it out between now and then.
Yeah.
Nice. Is there options?
Yeah, she's a travel nurse, to give some context, but yeah, she works with a recruiter, and then they can kind of look at like different. So she has a nursing license, and some states recognize kind of a global license.
Yeah.
And some states don't. So Alaska happens to be, I think, one of the ones that don't. So there's a few that she had to kind of update, or like California, she had to update her license, stuff like that. So if we go back to California, that's all updated. And then there's other states that recognize the global one. So then her recruiter can kind of look, okay, which licenses do you have? Which ones recognize those? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then kind of look at that. And so we look at cost of living versus what the pay rate is. So some places pay terrible. Oh man, you can work at 7-Eleven for better.
Yeah, don't go to Florida, basically.
Yeah, I was gonna joke and say it's Florida, which it is, but nonetheless. And then there's other places that are just really slam for nurses, and so that's what we've been kind of looking at.
Was it so how long has she been doing it?
For travel nursing, only since COVID, honestly.
Oh, really?
But COVID just totally changed that landscape for them. So
I'd imagine it probably perked up really well during COVID, and made it really appealing, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm. She went to New York City during peak COVID, which was crazy. Yeah, and got paid pretty well there. And
Did everything. You? And you went also?
I know.
No,
I just stayed because she
in
was
California.
Just in she was just in this tiny little.
Yeah, that actually
probably as big as this right here.
Yeah, that'd actually probably be the worst place to go during COVID, right?
Exactly.
Unless you were maybe the nurse or something, but as just someone living there, it'd probably be horrible, especially for jiu-jitsu wise.
Exactly, there was nothing.
Yeah, I imagine California probably had its downs too, though, right? Being such a mass populated place.
Yeah, it was shut down for quote 13 weeks. I just remember this calendar that my friend and I had, where we just marked off the days that we trained, and it was 13 weeks that, and we skipped maybe 2 or 3 days, but nonetheless. And then finally things kind of reopened. But during that, there was a lot of kind of. Remember that kind of oh, you're training, how dare you? That's so irresponsible. And so we just really quietly trained at my place. I had some mats, garage, all that, and we trained every day, just drilling, positionals, maybe those types of things, not trying to kill each other, stuff like that. I think I popped his foot, he chipped my tooth, but nothing overly trying to kill each other. Just kind of crazy stuff. And then and then everything started kind of reopening for a little bit, and then kind of back. And so you kind of drove around California, you saw a lot of gyms with kind of that visqueen or kind of black or cardboard or whatever over the window, so people couldn't see that people were training. And then you also notice man, no one parks in the front, everybody's parking in the back. That's interesting. So that was kind of what was going on there. That's
kind of how it was here too, when it first started. And I didn't get to unfortunately, I didn't get the word until it was kind of already in, no one was really training. But one of the gyms up here, they had just the paper over the windows and just said it was up there for construction. But then they had a little hole cut in this so you could peek out and see it was there. But same thing, no one parked in front, you parked scattered out throughout the strip mall parking lot. So, but it was still fun, obviously. And especially up here, it's not easy to get mats. Even to today, I still go on Facebook, hoping to find a good deal on some mats, even if they're puzzle mats, because that's what we had before. But man, it would just be really nice to have mats, especially with both kids, or 2 kids, not both, but half of the kids in wrestling now. And then it would just be great to have something for them, and then I could get something in But
yeah, we've looked at like rates, like just for those simple like rollout ones that BJJ HQ has for like you know, like it's like $100 or whatever for those rollout ones, which are real nice.
Yeah.
But then like the shipping is like $1 million. Yeah. Like, well, never mind.
Yeah, maybe not. And then so like up here, like the only bed is like Facebook, and unless you want to pay like double the mat price for shipping.
Exactly.
So you know, there's some nice mats who are the rollout mats. They're probably from BJJ HQ. Is Hogan does. So I've been over there a couple times to like kind of work with him, and every time I go, I'm so jealous of the mats.
Yeah, I had these like puzzle mats that it was like this weird trade. Like this one gym in Atlanta, they were kind of going to a new place. They're getting rid of their puzzle mats, but those puzzle mats had gone through like 3 different iterations of like a Henzo Gracie affiliate.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of them, and I traded like some for like a grappling dummy and some kettlebells and so on and so forth. So I've had those like forever. Well, not forever, but like a few years now. And then my wife wasn't so sure, like, do you really want to like move these across the country like 15 times? And then after a while, she's like, these are totally worth it, because for her, like, she can like work out on it.
Yeah.
So, like, that doesn't always have to be grappling. So
yeah, is she your grappling partner? Your
no,
drilling
she's terrible,
partner?
Man. Yeah.
So's my wife.
Yeah, she's just like,
oh, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Like once in a while, like if like I'm teaching or something, like the night before, like let me run through this move with you. Yeah. And then it's just the worst part. It's like the dead fish partner.
Yeah,
I'm like, you got to be like realistic. Like you want to just like, if I touch you, you won't fall over. Fall over. I need you to give me something here. Yeah. So I had puzzle mats, and they were like the cheapest. Like they were like half-inch thick puzzle mats. But it was enough. Like, and then my wife did judo, so she'd want to like do like stand up on them. Like, so like, can we not do this? But so we would use them, and they were real nice. We had enough for like a 14 by 14 square. And then we took them to Florida and then sold them there. But I've had those things for probably 15 years. I got them on like Government Hill like 15 years ago, and they were like dirt cheap. I think I got them for like 50 cents a mat or something, and I got a ton of them. Yeah,
that's what I was like, maybe $5 a mat, but really we just traded each other a bunch of stuff. Like, here's some DVDs, you know, that type of thing.
Man, I had a ton of DVDs too. Luckily, you know, obviously like they're still on like BJJ Fanatics, like the app or whatever. But I probably had like a good collection I left in Florida too. Whoever bought the house, they trained at the same gym I was down there, and it was kind of just like here's like a little housewarming gift for you. Like, you bought my house, here's the DVDs. I have them already online, so I guess I don't need them. So it worked out. But so the recruiter that she has, is it a different recruiter no matter where you go, or you just work with one the entire time?
You try to honestly be a little bit loyal. But there's some places that kind of like, oh, well, you know, I have an East Coast buddy or whatever. Or you kind of put your name and say, hey, I'm looking at these East Coast ones. And then all of a sudden she gets like 15,000 phone calls from recruiters. They're like, I noticed you were. And so she tries to stick with the same recruiter.
It tries to just be easier in general for her.
And then they like have all all her paperwork, all her licenses, stuff like that. So you don't have to like do all the red tape over and over. And that delays start dates and stuff.
So like right now, is there like, so there's like a list of places that you guys have the option to go?
Yeah, and we're trying to be more open. Like, it's been slowly this subtle like trying to be more and more like a gypsy somewhat. So when we left Atlanta, I was there and I was kind of like getting burnt out of my job and everything, and so I was like, okay, I'm ready to be out of the South. She was ready to be out of the South, so that was a big one. And then, okay, let's go to the West Coast. I really manipulated to try to get a job in Southern California, and I did. But then COVID happened, and then that job went away, and then so I was like, well, all right, I guess I just sit on the couch and train a lot. And then she was just, you know, making money doing the travel nurse, and since Southern California had so many hospitals around, it was really easy for her. And then Alaska was like, hey, we hear you're sitting on the couch. Do you want to, like, you know, just work remotely? I'm like, sure. They had like really lenient rules for remote work during COVID. So
is that the place you work at now?
Nice. I work at the Alaska State Crime Lab, and I worked there like when I was like 25, I started there, and so I had a lot of history there and everything, and so it was easy for me just to reach out and be like, hey, I don't really have a job. And so
so you guys, you both have lived here previously? You guys have family here, is that right? Okay.
I was born in Fairbanks and then grew up in Nome, Alaska, and then she was like born in Texas but like barely remembers it, and her dad was in grad school, so they kind of moved around a bit, and then she got up here when she was in, I want to say late elementary school, maybe junior high. She moved to Kenai area where he was a school psychologist. And then so she kind of grew up in the Kenai area. So we're both pretty much Alaskans.
Nice. How long did you live here?
I mean, into college. I went to college at University of Idaho, came back, and then lived there until I was probably 30, 31 when we, maybe 32 when I moved out. And then I moved to Seattle and then Atlanta and then back. So I've been, vast majority of my like 42 years has been in Alaska.
Yeah. What brought you to Seattle or took you to Seattle?
So I do forensics for the Alaska State Crime Lab, and I was kind of honestly really tired of living in Alaska. Like, it was like one of those like tough winters where you're like, all right, that's it, we're getting out.
Yeah.
So I applied to Seattle PD and became a quality assurance manager for their forensics part, and then really enjoyed Seattle at that time, and it was kind of one of those like, a real city, oh my goodness. And then and much less you can kind of drive and do like these day trips instead of just be like, well, I guess we'll go to Talkeetna or Girdwood again. And so I was there for a few years, and I kind of like the same obsession I have about jiu-jitsu I had about my career at the time. And so I was like really climbing up the ranks, and so I was like doing presentations and those types of things. And then this guy at the United States Army Criminal Investigation Laboratory, USACIL, was like, I think you would be a good fit for my team. If a position came open, would you think about applying? And it's like, sure. So applied. I didn't think I would get it. It was really tough recruitment, and like really a lot of good people like applied, and so I had to beat them out, but I guess I did. And then so I was like, well, I guess I now have to move. So essentially trying to convince my wife to move from Alaska to Seattle. Just going through the Alcan, and then Seattle to Atlanta, and it was like, all right. So we did this huge road trip that took like 30 days, and we just went down like the Pacific Coast Highway, through the desert, through the Rocky Mountains, to the Great Lakes, down through, so just kind of meandered around and saw a lot of the United States, which was really fun. And then was in Atlanta about 3 years, and then I kind of ended up becoming like a branch chief at where I was working, and I hated supervision. I was like, oh man, no wonder people say that this is terrible. So I was like, all right, I'm happy to leave if we want. So then that's how I got to California.
And you started jiu-jitsu in Georgia, is that right?
Yeah, that's a weird, I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was. Like everybody's like, I remember the UFC. I didn't even watch any of that.
Yeah.
I was really into soccer actually when I was here before. So I played at like the Dome or like on the kind of potholey fields in the outdoors and stuff.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I was driving over, I was like, I remember this field, tucked back here. But I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was. And then when I was at Seattle PD, we got to work out for free. Like, it didn't, you got paid to work out essentially for to be healthy. So this big Polynesian guy would work out the same time as me, and I didn't know he was kind of like the SWAT special tactics guy. But we just work out. Really cool dude, spot each other and stuff. And he's like, have you ever thought about jiu-jitsu? And I'm like, no, I don't even know what that is. He's like, well, I'm a black belt over at this one place, in Seattle. If you ever want to, try it out, let me know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like way out there, and I'm like, I don't want to drive 30 minutes. So that in the back of my head, I was like, well, if I ever quit soccer, maybe I'll try jiu-jitsu. So then when we moved from moved from Seattle to Atlanta, I was like, I don't really want to go play soccer again. All right, maybe I'll try this jiu-jitsu thing out. So when I got to Atlanta, I tried a bunch of different gyms, a lot of Yelp, all right, what is that one? And so one was pretty close, named Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu, which we'll come back to. And a few other ones were more like traditional, how they sell you like self-defense, all that. And so I went to some of those and was like, okay, that's not bad. And all right, but then I realized every time I went to this Buckhead place, I would just use, because he was much more like sport and, fun and, kind of just, he wasn't trying to show how to disarm like a gun or something. He just straight up, this is a over-under pass or whatever.
Yeah.
This is half guard.
I don't even think a place up here does this true self-defense jiu-jitsu. I don't even think it's a thing anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
Krav Maga across the parking lot would be it.
So then I was just using what I would learn at Buckhead over at these other places, and then I would just be like, man, this is like I must be a superhuman, I must be a natural. And then I would go and roll at Buckhead and I'd be like, no, I suck.
Yeah.
And then so I had this kind of faith, crisis of faith in my head. It's like, do I want to just beat up people kind of naturally, or do I want to get beat up and then one day maybe start beating people up? And it's like, okay, I'll go with the harder route. So I dropped my whatever. I didn't even finish the trial on the other ones. Just stayed at Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu, and that's where I started my journeys. Was Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu with Sam Joseph in Atlanta. So that's kind of my shout out there.
Yeah.
And then was white to purple under him, and then purple to black in California.
How long did it take you to get from white to purple?
Well, yeah, I'll give you a whole thing. This is I really don't talk about it. Like, I don't like, hey, it took me this long to get my black belt. 'Cause I don't like to advertise it too much, but it's like, it only took me 6.5 years.
Yeah.
To go from white to black. White to purple was about 3 years. I broke my arm really early at blue belt.
Yeah.
So it kind of like, kind of like after that, I was like, okay, if I come back from this, I'm gonna go all in. So then I just really like got all in, and so that's where like the trajectory went really fast after that.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be kind of in the same boat as to where like once I do make it, like I don't feel like I'd want to advertise it.
Exactly,
just because like I spent and obviously people hear about it now, but I spent like 1 year at white, 1 year at blue, and then 2 years at purple, and now 2 years at brown. So it's like right now it's almost 6 years.
Yeah.
And then when you tell people that, you're like, oh yeah, like I'm halfway through brown belt at 6 years. It's like, are you though? And all this. So now it's just like, yeah, I've been doing it for a while or whatnot. Like it's just avoids that awkward conversation. Yes. But I mean, for all I know, I could be like 2 years away still. Like, cause it right now it averages like a stripe a year, for brown belt, for me, obviously. And like, who knows with Roger, like where's his head's at. And like right now it's just like trying to fine tune details and everything. And like right now, I think he thinks I have a problem passing guards because he watched me and Graham roll one day. After like, it was like a minute left in the roll. So like we've already had like a couple good scrambles. Like I passed the guard, I got to here, I submitted this. And then like I went like just the same pass, just like practicing like this little like no-gi, like Toriando pass, just pushing the knees aside and getting in. And, it was like the third time I did that pass in that roll. So like, Graham's catching on, and Graham's like a great blue belt now. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna sit back and play guard. Like I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like I can handle some guard game again right now. And then I think he took that as like, oh, you can't pass guard. So then he was like, he brought it up. He's like, here, try to pass my guard. I was like, oh, you think that this just happened? And he was like, yep, and you're gonna have trouble because like, our blue belts are getting really good now. I'm like, okay, you just came in late, but all right, we'll go with it. You saw what you saw, that's fine. It's one of those things like when you do really good stuff, like the professor's like doing something off on the other side of the mat, and then like, one day like someone passes your guard and like you look up and like it's that meme, like the professor sees that from across the room. I'm like, oh, come on. Yeah,
it's like the typical like you just choked him out and then you're like, I'm gonna try something different because I know that works, and then they're like on a toe hold and you're like, son of a.
Yeah, and then like the thing is like, so Roger knows like I have like a really good like say guard game. But like what I tell him I'm working on now is because like he wants to know like what you're working on and what's going on. I'm like, I'm just working on like a top game. Like I had like the knee issues and all this, like, so it's not really, the knees aren't handling like guard too much. Like I'm still a little skeptical on them. Like, so those some days you feel good about it. Some days you feel all right. So it was just like one of those times. Like, so he knows I'm working top game, but you come in like 4 minutes into the roll. We're like, all right, I've already worked top game. He's catching on. I'm just going to go back, test out the guard game, and get a little bit of rep in that. And so all he saw was like, oh, his top game must not be working. He had to resort back to what he's good at, and so that's what it is. But yeah,
I just blame Graham. That's all I heard.
That's what I'm gonna do. Yeah. That's what I do now too. Because we were rolling one day and he hit this great low single. And unfortunately, it wasn't on like the already bad knee. It was on the good bad knee, and. Again, a great low single, but right when you did it, like it just buckled backwards instead of like coming out to the side. So again, no fault to him, and I tell him that, but so I blame that on him. Like, so Graham just goes around hurting people.
Yeah, he is.
And then maybe 2 weeks later, like once I felt good, we were back in the situational class, and I got paired up with Graham, and I just went. We were in half guard, so I just brought him up and went to like the headquarters to X Pass, and that big back kick. Forced like it was such a big back kick, it forced the knee to kind of like just hyperextend and buckle real quick. I was like, and like went back into like a knee slide position, and we had to stop again. So now I just blame him for hurting me all the time.
Graham.
Yeah. Fucking Graham. But yeah, I think he's out for a while, so we should all be safe.
Yeah, yes.
So Buckhead JiuJitsu, white to purple there. And then, I mean, and the way like I've talked to you before, like you were really happy there. Like it. Yeah,
like I have no complaints about there, anything like that. It was actually just Atlanta. It was more like, we're tired of Atlanta. So it was more like, it's kind of, I was thinking about that on the way over. Like, my loyalty to Sam would be like your loyalty to Roger. Like, if I didn't move and didn't have a good situation in California, let's take like the California situation out of the way. I was thinking about that in fact, when I moved up, I was like, man, if I don't get my black belt under AOJ, like, who would I actually want to have my black belt under?
Yeah.
You know, kind of like for you, it's meaningful, maybe to Roger or whatever.
Yeah, it was a tough decision to move, for sure.
Exactly. And so it's like, Sam at Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu or anything, you know, anybody there, you know, or my friend Ben in Colorado, and like that's it. Like I wouldn't want it, you know, just to be like, and no offense to anything locally, but I didn't have that established relationship when I moved up.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, I don't want to like all of a sudden move to say Indianapolis and some, you know, I don't know, Jimmy's Jiu-Jitsu is like, okay, here you go, bud. And I'm like, thanks, you know?
Yeah.
So, and because I do think that's kind of I personally think that's semi-important who gives you your black belt in regards to the relationship you have. I don't think it really matters, like lineage and those types of things.
Yeah, me neither.
It's just more of like, this person recognizes that I am a black belt under them, or that I had the skill at one time to be that black belt under them. Yeah. So I get where you're coming from with Roger and everything else.
And that was the exact same situation. And like, just the way you view it is pretty much the exact same way I view it. Like, I don't care about lineage and all of that. Some people may, and some people do, and good for them. It's just nothing personal about it. Like, I just care about who gives it to me. Like, the relationship I have with them is a very important relationship to me. And it was kind of the same thing. Like, when you were moving to California, like, you had your eyes set on AOJ. Like, and if they give it to me, great.
Yeah.
And then when I was moving down to Florida, it was the same thing. Like, one of the only like real detractors from moving to Florida was like, am I gonna leave legacy? Like, what do I do? Like, I was already like set on leaving the job and doing this. I just kind of burnt out. But so like nothing was really holding us here. Like, it was just time for a change. And that was the hardest thing for me, was personally just like the jiu-jitsu, like leaving Roger and leaving the morning class. But down there, you know, you Google stuff and figure out what's around, and no one really tells you like, oh, this checkmat gym from where I moved is, say, 15 miles away, 17 miles away, but it's 50 minutes away.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
the drive time's crazy. But then it was like, so there was a checkmat gym down there. I was like, man, if I could be under the same like gym or umbrella like Buchecha is, or something like that, I was like, I would consider switching for that. And Roger was really open. He was like, if you want to, like, what's going to happen? Do you want to be under me? If you don't, if you want to go down there, it'd obviously be easier. There's no problem. I understand. But even then, like, my mind wasn't like made up. It was still leaning towards like, I've made it all the way to purple, and like there was a hope I'd get my brown belt before I left. We talked about it, and like, I understand where he was coming from to like send you off at even a brand new higher rank. Like, it's a lot of pressure to like go down there. So like, I understood, but we came to the conclusion, I was like, I'm going to stay under you. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get back to like keep you updated on progress and go about it, but I'll figure something out. It's important to me enough that I'll figure it out. Luckily and unluckily, like, it was for horrible reasons. I had to come up for a funeral, and I got my brown belt for that.
That's right.
And then it got like the first stripe once we came back about a year later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, I understand where you're coming from. Like, if stuff had to really line up if I was going to switch gyms. If not, my relationship is so good. And you know, I ended up at a great gym in Florida, and no complaints about the gym. I love the people there. The owner and like the head professor was like, man, like, honestly, one of the best guys I've ever grappled with. And you know, there's a good handful of really good black belts up here, and just good people in general. But it was just like one of those times when like you roll with someone and you're like, that's a fucking black belt. Like, everything was solid. Like, I didn't honestly believe in closed guard until I rolled with this guy. And it, like, everything that he touched was just like, oh, I'm in trouble right now. But I do think he was unhappy. Like, I wouldn't switch over, and maybe just didn't understand. But like, and we never like quite like honestly talked about it. And I think that probably would have solved a lot of stuff. I talked to like one of the other main instructors there, who, you know, I grew pretty close with, and some of the other students there. But it was just kind of came down to like, I don't have that relationship with you. I have, you know, years of relationship with this guy, and it's just important to me. Like, I would be his first black belt just all together, and hopefully still will be. And then on top of that, going white to black under one person who you have that relationship was important. But like I said, never had the conversation with the new guy. I just told him my guy's going to be here. And then he approached me again, after I got brown belt, and he was like, now you got your brown belt, you're coming over here, and it was like, oh no, like now is even more reason not to for me, and it's just nothing personal, and I hope your students have that same relationship with you, that they wouldn't leave you no matter what. They'd figure out a way to stay under you if they had to move for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's difficult, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's part of it BJJ politics to a degree, but I also think it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like I don't have kids. You can correct me if you're wrong because you do have kids, but it's kind of. I
thought you meant like about you having kids.
Yeah. But it's kind of like you're raising a kid, and then at a certain point you're like, oh, okay, Jimmy's an adult now. Here you go. Yeah. And it's hard to be like, all right, midway, you're a teenager. Here you go, and then it's hard, and so. I get it. I get like, because I've talked to you about your relationship with Roger and stuff, and so I totally get it because that's how I felt about Sam and Derek and some of the other black belts there. Like I'm still close friends with a lot of those guys, or like stay over at their house when I or there, whatever, those type of things. And so again, like I did manipulate things, because my wife's like, oh, we can go to here, and I'm like, Southern California, Orange County, I will make it work. Drive 30 minutes to this place. And I think she made a joke, like there was caveat, no making, I'm not making fun of any place, but maybe there was like a bigger franchise school literally across the street from where we lived, and she's like, oh, you can go there, and I'm like, oh, no.
Was that in
30 minutes?
Was that in Orange County?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we started realizing in Orange County, you can drive, like we were just getting burgers one day, like a 10-minute drive to go get burgers. Yeah. And we passed like 5 jiu-jitsu gyms.
Yeah.
Like,
I bet they're everywhere down there.
Yeah. So.
And then have you ever trained at AOJ before that?
I was there for a week for training. I was just some training, for work down at like Pepperdine or whatever, I think, and their campus. So I just kind of did a little week pass there. Yeah. And had trained there, and I knew some guys from tournaments and stuff. Okay. Which was, hopefully not awkward or whatever. So I kind of knew, and obviously knew their reputation. I had like AOJ Online, which is now AOJ Plus. So I knew like their style. I knew like it was slightly smaller style, daily heave, all that stuff, which I was like, yes. Yeah. And, so I almost was like kind of like a pseudo fanboy just from afar before I moved. And so there was no question. I wasn't going to like try out 7 other gyms. No, it was just like, this is like I walk in, okay, I want my free day, and then I'm going to sign up, kind of thing. Like, that's it. Yeah,
that's how I felt about, moving to Florida too, is like, I don't want to try out all these gyms. Like, one, like just my awkward social anxiety was like not going to allow me to like build up the courage to go to this gym and then go to this gym. Because there was one, like I lived perfect center in the middle of like 2 different gyms. Like one was like just 5 or 7 minutes this way, one was 7 minutes that way, and we won't say who it is. Kind of like the same thing. There's one right across the street. But I called, I had, and even that, making the phone call was even weird for me. I didn't even like that. Like, I built it up so much in my head. I was like, oh, it's going to be an awkward phone call. Like, I should hang up now. But I built up the courage one day, and I drove there, and they were closed. I was like, oh, that's it for me.
Yeah, that's a sign.
Ooh, thank goodness.
That's a
sign. But still, I think ended up calling later, and there was no free class. You couldn't try it out. You had to pay. And then they made it like an exception since I was like a purple belt. I could come in or do something. And the price of it was pretty high too. They were affiliated, and on their website and social media pages, they were affiliated with a big gym. I want to say it was also Checkmat. So like there was a Checkmat gym right there. There was another one closer to like the beach coast area that was, quite a ways away. But I was like, all right, well, I'll still consider it because like it is a big gym. I would be interested. And just like the people you might have come for seminars, I'd be interested. But they're like, oh, we're not actually affiliated with them anymore because, politics and whatever reasons. And I was like, all right, so you want like $150 a month. And then like, I think there was just like a lot of limits and stipulations on it. And all right, well, what about like if one of my kids sign up or 2 of my kids sign up? Like, well, it's still $150 a month and all this. But the other gym, and it's, if you're ever in, Northwest Florida, it's Remedy JiuJitsu. And like I said, it's one of the best places I've trained. And, I spent a lot of time there, obviously. But they had, and I hope they still do because we're going to say it, but they had this family deal to where like, if it was just you, it's $100 a month, which is pretty average, and a great price because if you train every day, like it's
easy.
It's like $3 a day, like you can't beat that. And especially if a kid's in sports, right? Having that, like it's such a deal, jiu-jitsu for kids. But if a family member, a whole family, could sign up for $200 a month, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, like I want you guys
on the family number.
That's what I asked. I was like, now is this like the typical average household American family, like 4 kids maybe? Or I was like, because I have 6 people in my family, and I would love them all to be able to do it. And here and there, they all have at least tried it. And they're like, no, we have people in here that have like 8 people in their family. I was like, so that's the price? They're like, yeah, that's it. I was like, I'm there.
Yeah.
Went there and tried out the class, and it was great. Like there was a ton of people in there. Like it was one of those classes like you walk into, and it was just like a big gym feel, but it was but it was in like a smaller place. Just because how many people there. It was a good size. It's a good sized gym, but there was just so many people, and like that was a good sign right there. Like
like people are wanting to come to that.
Yep. Place. So I went there, and luckily I only had to try out one gym,
cool.
And it just worked out great. But again, like that was like a little bit of Google, and I just happened to move close to it, and I just got lucky. So
yeah, to your point, like I'm the same way. Like I'm pretty which I'll talk about here in a second, but like I'm pretty not antisocial. Like I hate people, but I'm pretty shy and introverted, and like the same thing. Like some of the other ones you've talked about with having the anxiety, same.
Yeah.
And like I'm pretty small and like older, and then it's like, all right, getting out my high belt now. All right, everybody's gonna try to kill me.
Yeah, what you've talked about before, like sometimes, like especially like after black, like you just like to leave it in your bag sometimes.
Yeah, it's like awkward sometimes. But anyways, and so. I just was like, man, if it doesn't work out at AOJ, I don't know what, like I just asked my wife to move across the country. And so I was like, I hope it works out. And then COVID hit, and it's like, well, here we are. You know? And I remember like she was laid off. I didn't have a job, so we were just sitting there, and we had some savings and stuff. We just remember sitting there eating like DoorDash. I'm like, this might have been a mistake. But then I was like, okay, the whole country shut down. Whatever, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then when it reopened, I think that like really helped me fit in a lot more versus before I was just like a number, I was just a nameless face. In fact, like probably a lot of people thought I was just like a visitor or something, like some brown belt visitor, you know? Or I guess purple belt at the time, purple belt visitor. And so then when it reopened, there wasn't very many people on the mat compared to now, but like maybe there's like 12, 15 people on the mat, and I was like, oh, okay. And I just remember being like, well, all right, I'll just keep coming every day. And I guess I just like seeing the same face over and over and over again. It's like, okay, I kind of grew into that place a bit. Yeah.
So once it reopened, and you said once it reopened, there's like 12 or 15 people on the mat.
Yeah. I mean,
did that make it had to make it easier for you, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because like right now, like when they post videos, like their morning class has like 100 people there.
Plus, yeah.
That's crazy. Like to walk into that, like it would be like, oh, what am I doing here?
Yeah, that would be tough. And and just trying to be like, I mean, I'm definitely not trying to make like a name for myself by any means, but definitely just to be able to like, hey, can I ask a question? Like, who are you? You know, like, this
guy signed a waiver?
Exactly. So versus like being like, oh yeah, okay, I know him, so that type of thing. So, and it is easier just to like make friends when there's only like 12 versus like 100 and you're just like, oh man, I got the stinky gi guy, or I got the guy that just spams Ezekiel's or something, and you're just like, damn it, and being antisocial or kind of introverted, I would like, I would have been stuck with the stinky gi guy, Yeah,
hopefully someone comes up to me.
Yeah, exactly.
But hopefully they don't.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, so black belt, it's like everybody's like, there's like that unwritten rule. It's like, oh, you can't ask upper belts to roll, or you can't ask black belts to roll. Oh man. And I'm just like, someone be my dance partner, please.
Yeah. When I get a black belt, I'm gonna hope that's still a rule. Like, hey, don't ask me to roll. Like, I've talked to everyone I needed to up in here. Like, I deserve the break, and how like all my being public is done and washed away now. Exactly. I should just be able to sit here quietly now and just mind my business. And
that's why I don't mind like when I teach, like, okay, you guys go ahead and roll, I'll just watch, quietly,
Yeah, because I mean sometimes I like that. Like sometimes like I wanna roll, and most of the time, like if it's an open mat obviously, but like man, most of the time, like I just kind of want to sit there. Like I'm just here to be here sometimes. Like I don't want to like really roll hard. And I finally made it to the point to where like I'm picking and choosing like who I roll with. I was like, man, like I pushed really hard to get here and whatnot. Like it's time to like preserve like what body I have left, and like try to be smart about it, and not like just be like, oh, this person wants to roll, we're gonna roll, and this like giant white belt wants to roll.
Here we go.
Yep. And then I'm just like, I probably paid enough for that over the time. Like, well, now like the only giant I want to roll with is like Garness, because like he's gentle and technical. And I just know he's going to try to big man Kimura me the entire time. Like I can get away from this, and now I just want to roll with like people my size, and blue and purple belts, and just people I know is just going to take care of me.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. And I mean, even more so now, because it's like at Black, like I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm just like, well, just keep alive, and the stripes will add up, you know.
Yeah, and that's like for me, like it wasn't like the person I just felt like I had to impress was just always Roger. Like, all right, I got to do this. I got to like show him I'm rolling. I got to show him like I'm working on this or doing that. And now it's just like, because like even now like Mondays, I don't really go to Mondays anymore because like it's just the gi. Like I was like, well, I feel like I'm only wearing this for him.
Yeah.
Like I don't even enjoy it. Like I used to enjoy it, but like I started out like years ago, I guess, 15 years ago, maybe like 2008. And just doing like no gi, and like I loved it. And then even now, like I just like it more. Like so now, like it's trying to like figure out like, well, I probably shouldn't train every single day and roll every single day. Now, like we're gonna try to dial it back and like be smart about it. And like, well, if I'm gonna go, I'm just gonna go to the days like I want to. Like no more trying to impress Roger. Like we're just gonna make it fun for myself now and not make it like a chore or a task,
Yeah, and that actually like benefited me a little bit. I mean, not that I was like the apple of like Guy or Tynan or whoever's eye or anything. It was more just like being up here and then still being under them. It was nice to just kind of like, well, I'll play with some stuff, and well, that didn't work, you know. But then kind of like have those reps without anybody sitting there looking over your shoulder, like, oh, did they see that, you know, type of thing. And so that way it gave me a lot more freedom, and still gives me a lot of freedom to be like, nah, I don't care. No one's going to judge me. And actually, I think at Black Belt, it gave me even more freedom. My friend Ferdinand gave me a text, like, right when he saw that I got my Black Belt. He's like, yeah, they kind of discussed this. Is like, once you get to Black Belt, there's so much freedom because it's like, well, no one's going to hold me back from Coral Belt except my age.
Exactly,
So it doesn't matter anymore. You can play with all you want. You can, okay, I've always wanted to play with Worm Guard. I'm going to get passed 1,000 times. And they can go ahead and brag to their friends that they passed, Black Belt's guard, but you're going to get better at Worm Guard from that. And so I thought that freedom at Brown Belt, for me, really helped. So, I mean, I think my personal thing is like whatever keeps you going to the mat, whatever keeps you interested is going to always benefit you.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at now. It's just like, well, I'm still a brown belt. Like, I'll get to black belt one day. But now it's just the point like, well, now I get to do it like my way. Like, do I want to sit here and like work on only no-gi? And one day it'll come. Like, I'll still put on like the gi on like Fridays or an open mat or something. Like just enough. And like I think Roger and I had a conversation before. He's like, if you want to like do no-gi, that's fine. Just make sure you're putting on the gi every once in a while. I'm like, perfect. I can do that. Just to like I'll keep you happy in that way. But like if I now like I'm just doing like trying to practice like top game. Though like everything starts to feel better now. Like especially if it's someone my size. Like I used to really like deep De La Riva X and obviously in the gi. Just because like the long legs like really played for it. But if I can't get them all the way through, like it gets like a pretty good amount of pressure on them depending on like what their reaction is. So I stopped playing it for a while just because like knee issues. But like now lately I can get it like all the way through. I'm like, all right, we feel good in here. As long as it doesn't stop until like the ankles cross on the other side. So like now it starts to feel good again. Like, so wait, I don't need to like just sit here and rep top game all the time now. Like I can start getting back into the stuff I like, but like you said, like it's just to the point where I can kind of do what I want to do, and I don't really care like if you pass my guard right now or if you win a situational or whatnot, because I'm still gonna be a brown belt. It doesn't matter. Someone thought I was a brown belt one day, and like there's no going back. And same thing, like once I get to black belt, like it'd just be so freeing for me. And just to realize that brown belt, like, oh, this doesn't really matter. Like I'm just here for fun. Like it was super freeing. So black belt will be the same way too. I'd imagine like I can do whatever I want and it doesn't matter. Like I'm still a black belt.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I mean, my friend Fiona has this nice quote of like, you become your own samurai. And so it's like that's what we're always pursuing, becoming our own samurai. And so that's what I kind of thought about. It's like a black belt. It's like, well, that's it. It's like, well, I might as well. And exactly to that, it's like now you can kind of like put yourself in bad positions more, really play with things that like you've always neglected, like maybe leg locks or, maybe not for you, but like for me, leg locks or something like that, or, really, okay, let me play with this, whatever, because at that point, like, you're just trying to keep motivation to keep going.
Exactly.
And I think that's what a lot of black belts struggle with personally, is just, where's that motivation to keep going? And that's what I struggled with too. I think I told you about this when I did get my black belt. It was like this huge weekend, like I won Master Worlds, I got my black belt, all that, and then all of a sudden, like, I woke up, like, once I got back to Alaska, like, on Tuesday or Wednesday, was just like, I don't even want to train. Like, I just want to eat ice cream and pizza. And I pretty much was, like, eating ice cream and pizza. Like, okay, I'm never going to be 135 pounds again now. And, like, just kept eating. And then was like, okay, I should probably figure out why I want to keep training.
Yeah.
And so that's where you kind of become like the love of the sport or the love of the art. And I think for you guys, it's like once you get to like brown belt or whatever, and you kind of get away from like trying to impress someone, you just do it for the love of the art. I think that's maybe where your growth is going to be like pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
My personal thoughts.
Yeah.
Not Roger.
So yeah, if we only knew what he was thinking. When you, and I've been picking like, black belt's brains about that. Like what happens after black belt? Like what's the motivation to keep going? Is it like just instructing? Is it, trying new things? But was there like a drop off? Is there an for you, like being such a big competitor, like that I assume would be the motivation. Like, well, I've won this stuff at brown belt. Now it's time to go for these same things at black belt. So you have like a whole, goal still, for like someone like me. It's like, I don't compete. I don't really plan to compete. Once in a while I get like a wild hair, but for me, it's just like, man, what do I do after I have?
I agree with you. Like, I don't know, like if I'll be the same competitor I was at like blue, purple, brown and stuff.
Yeah.
Just because I know like the depth of the pool at black is pretty deep, and I'm okay like trying and shooting for that. Like I'm cool with the journey getting me good enough to be like somewhat competitive in that level. And if I hit those goals, those gold medal goals or whatever, that's cool too. But the pursuit of it is really like the more important thing. I think for me, one thing that changed once I got to black, it was kind of like you jump, like you got onto this boat or you jumped across this finish line, whatever arbitrary thing you want to say, and then kind of looking back and seeing your friends almost there, or people that you kind of like, or you see like kind of versions of yourself, like their passion or their love for it or whatever on the other side, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna help you guys get on this boat. I'm gonna help you guys. And so like talking to you and Garness, Dylan, Elliot, those types of people that like though I see, and then my friends at Buckhead like Kenneth and Matt and those types of people, is like just trying to like get them, to keep going and be like, trust me, like on the other side it will feel really rewarding and those types of things. That's been actually my number one thing. Is like, all my personal goals and those types of things that will happen, when I get there, but it's more of just trying to be like getting people to keep going and not just be like, I almost got there and then I quit. And it's like, no,
So at brown belt, obviously major accomplishments, Pan Ams,
Euros, Pans, American Nationals, and Master Worlds all at brown in the same year, so like the same calendar year. So that's kind of like a quote American Grand Slam, kind of something we made up. But nonetheless, I didn't really want to go down to Brazil. Nothing against Brazil. I was just like, I don't know. That's a big, big jump from Alaska. So so I kind of made the goal. Well, okay, so rewinding it back, I won Pans in 2021, but my stepdad was starting to really fade. He had brain cancer for a lot of years, and so I was kind of like in the back of my head, like, there's a big chance he's gonna pass this year. And I'm gonna have to move back to Alaska to help out with my mom. So that's kind of why I came back. And so, so in fact, I bumped into Liz Clay at that Pans 2021. Was like, oh hey, can I text you? Not slide into her DMs, but just like, hey, like just ask about like training in Alaska, because I knew there was legacy because of her, but I wasn't sure what the scene was like at all. And so, and she gave me some good feedback of like, what the gyms are and stuff like that. And so there was a lot more gyms than I realized. I was like, okay, cool, we'll have a lot of options. And then, kind of like, and then once I moved back, or before I moved back, I kind of broke the news to Tynan and Guy and was like, hey, I'd really like to stay under you guys. I don't know how long we're going to be up there, helping out with my mom, told them the situation. They were really cool and just like, yeah, stay under us. Like, we get it, that stuff happens. And so we came up, we weren't sure. I was hoping just to be up for like just a few months. Like, hey, just help my mom, but she was grieving and stuff like that. So just months came into like a year, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I might be up here a bit. So like, man, if I'm up here during like the 2022 season, like, how am I going to make this happen? I was like, well, I can call this my, Rocky training in Russia phase. And kind of like just go all in and just be like real focused, real like, strict on like everything. Like, okay, I study every night, I have these goals, I review my goals, those types of things. And so I was like, well, if I do that, maybe I can make something special happen by winning all those in the same year. And then I remember like driving down to this, so I would go down to California and then live with my friend Ben and Natalie for a month and just train at AOJ constantly and do any tournaments around there. I remember driving down to San Diego like, why am I doing this stupid tournament? And then just having this like crisis of faith, like, this is dumb, I should just be working, I'm 40 years old, I should just be like a 9 to 5. I was like, well, there's a slight chance I can make this thing happen. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I did that tournament, all that, and then I remember being like flying to Rome from LA and being like, man, this is dumb. But then on the other end, like hanging out at the Airbnb with like friends, like which is like half the fun of competition.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this isn't so bad. I've had fun, even if I lose, no big deal, whatever. Won, it was like, and I won pretty like not easily, but like decisively. And I was like, man. Okay, I have a chance. If I won that, then I just have to win Pans. And
yeah.
then I won Pans. All right, 2 more to go. I won American Nationals, like subbed everyone. Was like, oh, okay, 1 more to go. And then Master Worlds, I was like, okay, I just have to win this, you know. And that one was like, I felt pretty good about my performance, but it was definitely, I could tell like my conservative nature came through, where I was just like, I just want to win. I don't want to like sub everybody or do, you know, highlight reels. I just want to win. And so once I won, I was like, well, if I get my black belt, great. If I didn't, I know I just did something pretty like difficult to do in Alaska. Like prove that I could do it while I was in Alaska, doing my own thing. You know, drilling with Mike instead of rolling, those types of things. And so, like, I proved that what I thought I could do, I could do. And so that was like more important than getting the black belt. And the black belt was the cherry on top the next Monday.
Yeah. So. Was the goal to win all 4 of those, or did you just won one and they were like, oh, all right, let's
go
to
the goal
next
was
one?
Always to win all 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so obviously, like, those are like, what more major accomplishments could you have?
Yeah.
Did anything like that happen at like purple or blue belt?
No.
Or
blue.
like just wasn't taken as serious or have those goals at the time?
Blue was like really up and down. It's probably like the most like I don't know, like manic depressive phase of any belt. It was like blue belt, like, oh, I did well, and then the next tournament I lost badly, and then you know, whatever. So blue belt was up and down. I got second at Master Worlds my second year at blue belt. And and lost by an advantage or whatever. And so I was like, oh man, so close. And then purple belt was like the first year. I always like the first year. I kind of like, okay, I'll just figure it out. What purple belt's like, what blue belt's like, what's brown belt's like. So whatever happens in the first year of that belt, I'm always like, you know, kind of taking it a grain of salt. But yeah, so purple belt, I won like New York Pro, but then like would lose like the Atlanta Open. So it was a little bit up and down again. But then I got third at Master Worlds, and then I was like, well, this next year's my year. And then COVID hit, and so I did win Pans and Nogi Pans and everything, but it was just such a weird year that like you didn't get those same like
you put like an asterisk next to it or something. You just didn't feel the same.
Yeah, it was like you didn't have the same opportunities like you did in the other ones. So it was more of just like, okay, whatever comes along. Like I don't think they had Nogi Worlds that year or anything. It was just like a really weird year. So then, so at Brown, I was like, okay, this is the year, and I kind of want to go out on top, kind of like John Elway or whatever, you know, some of those other athletes where they go out on top. And I was kind of like, okay, I'll do that. And then my stepdad died, so I was like, dang. And so like, okay, year two is my year. Yeah. And that was the year I put it together.
Nice. So you're under Tynan and Guy.
Technically Guy, because he's the one with like more than 2 stripes or whatever. Like, Tynan's at 0 stripes still.
Is Hoffa not a part of that, or like do they have their own students?
No,
I always assumed that they'd be the same people would be under both of them.
Yes, correct. Like I could probably say like in my like lineage, whatever, like Guy/Hoffa.
Okay.
I just had a lot more interaction with Guy, so he definitely like, you know, like just like say you versus Jordan versus Roger, like you're clearly closer with Roger than you are to Jordan or Danny or whomever. Same thing. Like I had very little interaction with Hoffa, and nothing against Hoffa. It's just timing. Like I went to 6 a.m. That's Tynan's class. You know, I went to comp class, which is ran by Guy. So you know, versus other people had more of a relationship with say Hoffa or whomever. You know, or even maybe say like Nick Bully or whatever. Those types of things. Like just kind of depends who you kind of interact with more and whose classes you're going to, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just happened to go to Tynan's class like 6 a.m. every day, 6 a.m. and then kind of got close to him just because like. We have the same birthday. Like I asked a lot of questions. I'm pretty proactive, especially when there's like 12, 13 people in class. I'm like, hey, you know, like what about this? What about that? You know, or like, oh, this isn't working. And then I was his like uke for some of his seminars because at the time like seminars were just starting. I was like, hey, if I flew to Washington or whatever, can I be your uke? And you know, me and my friend Ty would kind of do that with him, and that way we just kind of like be able to absorb that knowledge, but also kind of help him out and see how he does seminars and stuff. Yeah. So then we kind of grew close from that, and then with Guy, just kind of like again, just showing up, showing that you're doing the work, having a good attitude. I think that kind of ingratiate yourself a little bit to like someone like him.
Yeah.
So, and because again, like I wasn't trying to make a name, and I don't think I'm making a name. It's more of just like I'm gonna put in the work and try to hit my goals, and like I don't really care like if they notice, awesome, but it's really about like what I want to do. But versus sometimes people go to these places and they're like, I'm gonna try to tap everybody there, or I'm gonna be Guy's best friend or Tynan's best friend, and then it almost kind of like it's like awkward, when they kind of force it too much instead of just like putting in the work and letting that speak for them.
Yeah.
And so that's my 2 cents on that. But nonetheless, so for me, I just like quietly did my thing and just slowly kind of grew. And you get your friends and stuff like that, and kind of just being like a positive outlook and positive mindset and being like a good person in general, that kind of rubs off, kind of is shown instead of just being like, hey, I'm gonna, day one, be like everybody's best friend.
Yeah. You know what? One of the things that probably helped you stand out like the most and actually like really benefit from it in the good way is asking the questions.
Yeah.
Like nobody does that.
No.
Especially like maybe like at like a big gym where there's like really big names and world champions that you're learning from. Like I'd be more apt to ask questions. Mm-hmm. But like being in a small gym in Anchorage or wherever I would be, like I'd always be the person, and it seems like everybody's that person. It's like, well, no, I don't have that question. This is going to sound stupid, but the chances are like if you have that question, tons of other people there have that same question. As long as like you're asking questions like good questions. I don't even have an example right now, but just one example of like the not questions. Be like, well, what if they did this? Don't ask like the what if questions. Like that's stupid. But like ask the question. Like if you're wondering or you're curious, like especially if you're a white belt or a blue belt, ask the question. Like you're probably not gonna figure it out on your own, and you might as well just ask it and let everyone benefit from it than just hold it in and like I'll figure it out, because you probably won't.
Yeah, back to your point about Hoffa, I remember he taught a class. He was kind of taking over for Guy or whatever, or maybe Tynan, but nonetheless it was he was teaching that class, and he was just kind of more Q&A. And he was like, oh, do you have any questions? And it was just like this awkward silence. I'm like, how are you guys not asking? And maybe some of them were like, oh, I talk to him all the time. And that's cool. Yeah. I was like, oh, hey, why do you do this? And he's like, oh, that's a good question. And then, kind of went down that rabbit hole. And I was just like, how am I the only one not, Yeah. So, those types of things. And I do remember, like, like sometimes you're not motivated to train. And I remember always, like, or like nervous to train, especially like if you're introverted and stuff, or or like comp class, I'd always get like so nervous. I mean, I always knew who I'd pretty much go with. Like the moment that person stepped on the mat, like, there's my partner, all right. But nonetheless, like you're always really nervous. Like, am I gonna suck today? Am I gonna, get beat up today? Whatever. And I just remember always like running around, or like, and always thinking like, man, I'm so lucky. Like I remember like being wherever and being like, oh, they're so lucky to be in California, beautiful building, all these like champions on the mat, and like I remember just always feeling so lucky to be there, and just every day like I'm so lucky, I'm so lucky, I'm so lucky. I don't care if I'm so sore and can barely move. I'm lucky to be here. I don't care if I get beat up today. I'm lucky to be here. So to your point, it's like and I try to emphasize that a lot in classes or things I attend is like don't be afraid to ask questions, because we can't mind read where things are going. And a lot of times when you instruct, as you're like, I hope that I got that across. You're like, oh man, that went a little janky. And then you kind of look around the room and kind of figure out where it's going. But sometimes you're like, was that clear? And if someone's like, oh, could you? Oh yeah, that's what I meant.
Because half the time, like when I instruct, and like luckily, like I haven't had too much. Like we're obviously just lucky. Like you're here, and then Jordan's attending now. Garness is a great instructor. Like for he's just one of the most technical people. Like I know. But like so if you're teaching, like everything's so detailed, and like from this grip and why you putting it here, or why you shelf the leg here, and then you have Jordan who is a great black belt, a great instructor, and David's so technical, and then like it's like, all right, it's my day to teach. You're like, well, you just kind of do this and you do here, and it's just the most like straightforward, basic. You just do this. And then I was like, well, it'd probably benefit you guys if you did ask a question now. I hope you don't, because I don't want to say any more than I just did. I just stumbled all over my words right here. But you guys should probably ask a question just to like really make sure you understand it, because my like 2-sentence instruction was probably not enough to like really benefit. Unless like you just kind of know all the concepts already, or like what you should know. Yeah,
and I've been like not struggling, but kind of bouncing between that of like like, okay, here's the 22-step bolo versus just like, okay guys, we're gonna get to this spot, and I'm gonna blur some details, but we're gonna get to this spot, and then we'll make some problem solving from there.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of bounced between, and then but also at the same time, like I've been trying to just have people understand positions more than just like all the details. And then it's like, if you can just get to this spot and do stuff, good things will happen.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the part like I leave out. It's just like, we already got to this spot. We're going to assume good things have happened already.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just going to assume you know how to make good things happen, like off balance and like, shift your hips and do this. And then like you're looking around and like everyone's just like kind of looking in. I'm like, I know you guys probably don't have what you should right now, but we're going to break and we're going to rep and I'll just walk around and I'll just correct everyone on the same exact detail one by one. And
I've done that too, And I mean, I think that's why I think smaller classes are a little bit nicer. Even though we've been growing really well at 6 a.m., but nonetheless, it's nice to be able to walk around and kind of, like you said, like, okay, if I see like the same thing, I'm like, okay, bring it in. But if it's like, oh, this person adapted for their game or their body style. I forget, there was something I showed you and I was like, okay, if you're really lanky, maybe do it this way or whatever. And so I try to think that in consideration versus, maybe, like Garness, don't bolo, that type of thing.
Man, so back to the seminars. So you obviously like have traveled around quite a bit with Tynan and just being like his main, uke for seminars, but now you're doing your own, right?
Yeah, I've done one. My friend Josh in North Carolina, I knew from like this gym in Colorado. Like he was like, hey, now that you're a black belt, would you ever want to like, pop over and just kind of whatever? So I was like, sure, let's do it. So I flew over to North Carolina. And then he has kind of a small gym in kind of rural North Carolina, but kind of like one of those places like he's kind of growing himself, some white belts, maybe a couple blue belts.
Yeah. Did you know him from when you trained in Georgia, or you just met him like on the competition scene around?
No, I'm really so another side thing is I did a lot of Globetrotter camps, like BJJ Globetrotters. So I've done a lot of those, like 9. I'm stuck at 9, and then 10th you get like this pizza patch and then a pizza. So I'm like, I want to get that 10th one, but nonetheless, I've done a bunch of those, and I met when I was like a new blue belt, just coming back from my broken arm. I was like, okay, once I heal, I'm gonna sign up for like the first jiu-jitsu camp that's open, and it happened to be this one in Maine, like Portland, Maine, or not outside Portland, Maine, but like an hour and a half like drive at this like little kids camp, like sleepaway camp type of thing. And so I did that camp, and I met this guy Ben Westrich and his wife Natalie. And they run a school, Warrior Fitness Center in Colorado Springs, and he just had like a cool vibe. He's a veteran, I'm from a military family, so I kind of got that like sense of humor and that kind of whatever, and just really liked his vibe, and so kind of like befriended them a little bit. And then at the time, my sister-in-law's husband was teaching at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, so we'd visit them on occasion, my wife and I, and so I knew there would be at least like a place to train. And so I trained there a few times with them, and then just kept going to camps that they were also at, and then kind of just slowly became better and better friends with them over time. And then this guy Josh was one of their students before he got moved because the military over to North Carolina, and then he kind of started his own gym there. So that's how that connection was. And like for example, I stay on their couch. I'm in California because now he's gained his PhD at University of California, Irvine in economics. So I'll just like crash in their spare bedroom and those types of things. So it's really nice and stuff like that. So again, like kind of jiu-jitsu, we make all these friends. And one thing I'm like really like, I'm not like, oh, I'm team AOJ, even though I am, but it's not like AOJ and everybody else is terrible. No, it's more just like, hey, AOJ happens to be some of my friends, and Buckhead and Globetrotters and you guys and stuff like that. And so just being open to that and just kind of like understanding like it's all one big kind of small community. And so anyway, so that has really benefited me to be kind of like part of that Globetrotters group that kind of meets people at these camps. And then maybe you're in like, say, Germany. Oh, I was in Rome, and my friend Ferdinand was able to kind of like cheer me on at like Euros and stuff. And I was like, oh, I didn't even see you there. I was wondering who was yelling my name, that type of thing. Is
so like goals at black belt? Because wait, how many times you haven't competed too much at black belt?
One time,
right? Just the one. And that was
Jiu-Jitsu World League, which is pretty local to California, but they're starting to expand pretty well. And they're really, one thing I really like them is they're really well ran. Like they're like, you're gonna go on at 11. You're gonna go on at 11. Like you're not like maybe at 3 o'clock. Like the way they rotate things, you're just moving. So and then they record all your matches for you, so then you can just download and stuff like that. Nice. And so that's really cool to see. So that one I'll usually use as like a barometer or a test of either my technique or where I'm at. And then So yeah, so I competed at that, and it was and you always get 2 matches. So I had just one other guy in my bracket, so we do best 2 out of 3.
Okay.
So which is kind of weird, but kind of cool, because it's like, all right, he saw my tricks. Let's see what happens next, you know. But yeah, I was really nervous. I was visiting my friends. Anyways, nonetheless, I was visiting my friends, and I was like, well, that tournament's around the same time, so I'll just go ahead and do that. So I did that. Went up a weight class, of course, because no one's ever really light. But I was so nervous because there's like this lineup of black belts, and you see like the other brackets going before yours, and everybody just looks so good. And everybody's got their black belts on and their nice skis, and you're just like, I got it like 3 months ago. All right, good luck to me. You know, I honestly expected to lose, but I was like, I'm just gonna go out there. I'm gonna send it. I'm just gonna do my best, whatever. And so I won the first match against him, really nervous, like 5-2, like just so nervous, and was like, oh my gosh, I was so nervous. Like, okay, I can do better. Yeah. And so I kind of just like put it on my head. I'm like, okay, match 2, and like got more to my game. Was able to submit him and everything, and was like, man, that stuff I've been working on at Alaska, that was working. All right, good for me. But it also like kind of broke that seal a little bit in regards to being able to compete at black belt and feeling confident there. Versus like I was starting to hype up in my head like, oh, I don't know if I ever want to compete at black belt. Oh man, these guys are just killers. And it's like, well, it's gonna be the same people that were at brown at some point or purple at some point. So it's just like I just gotta do the same work and kind of do it. But it was probably one of the most nervous I've been competing in like a long time. Yeah, just because like just stepping up into black belt. Hype up in my head. And it's not like I was never not nervous at like Pans or Euros or Master Worlds. It's just more like another level of nervousness. Yeah, and it just seems like something like you'd put on yourself, right? Yeah, for sure. Like you said, it was definitely I hyped up in my head.
Yeah. So goals at black belt, is it to jump back into IBJJF or like feel it out at more smaller tournaments until like you do feel ready?
Yeah, like personal goals is to start like doing more. I want to do like opens, like IBJJF Open. So like the Cincinnati Open or whatever. I just threw a random name out there, but not jump right into like Master Worlds tomorrow and be like, well, second tournament, let's do it against these guys that have been 15 stripe black belts. So not really like jumping into a major right now, but kind of building up, just like I built up at every belt. Like I would kind of like do a few, like say the Dallas Open or the Houston Open or the Austin Open, then kind of like see where I'm at. Okay, I got second, or I won, or it was a close match, I won. Okay, I won via and kind of building up that way, and then trying to get to like some of those majors at some point. Like my friend Chris jumped right into doing some majors at black, and his buddy Clay won Euros this year. So it's like I've seen templates where like even guys that start later are doing well. They just have to put in the time and go through the motions.
Yeah. Is that stuff you think you're going to do this year, or like after like you guys figure out and move? I'd imagine like the moving is going to like put quite a bit of like unnecessary stress if you want to like
like trying to like train up and like be in the mental mindset of it's kind of selfish to be a competitor to a large degree, which thankfully my wife has been really like tolerant of that. But like I have to have like my diet and this and all those types of things have to be like kind of in place and kind of getting a groove, or just even being at AOJ for a month or full time to be able to feel confident or ready to go and stuff like that. So in that regard, wanting to move and those types of things, I've been kind of like pressing the brakes on wanting to compete. And then on the other side, depending where we land, will kind of dictate some of the goals from there. Yeah. So that's like personal goals. Like you were talking about like the teaching. I would like to teach more, but I don't want to run a school. Like, like that does not. I want to do some Globetrotter camps where I'm an instructor. Same thing where like I want to give back to like the communities that like have helped me get there. Same thing like I give back to like legacy. Like I don't mind like just like, here you guys go, here's Bolos, here's Daily Hiva, because you guys were so good at like, or legacy was so like tolerant of me doing my own thing and just kind of like being able to like drill and stuff like that with Mike and so forth. So it's like those things, just more giving back to the communities that have helped me at this point. And also, like I said, trying to get my friends to their black belt. Not that I'm gonna be Oprah and here's a black belt, because I can't, but it's more of just like supporting them getting into those goals.
I'll take it though.
Yeah.
Man, I think Mike's supposed to be coming back up here soon, right?
Hopefully,
At one point, it was every 6 months, so I haven't heard from him or anything like that. Hopefully, though, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to see him. So before we end it, I would like to know, because I know like you go to Alaska Club, but like you do, and you talk about diet, so you must have some sort of like decent strength and conditioning routine going on, right?
Yeah, like when I was 17, I mean, obviously I was like, I'm not a big dude, and I was even like smaller muscularly than now, but like at 17, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start weightlifting. And so at 17, kind of weightlifting, kind of figuring things out, and then that's just a habit I built like way back then, and have been able to continue. And it's kind of like helped me more than it's hindered me. Of course, like when you're stupid and like, wow, I'll jerk this up or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, some of those stupid things. But nonetheless, overall, it's also injury prevention. Kind of keeps me like moving on off days. Like maybe I don't go to the open mat, maybe I do. But, you know, just kind of keeping you sweating. But then also just, I was always kind of aware of like nutrition. So I don't really drink. Nowadays I don't even drink, or like trying to avoid sugars, those types of things, and just trying to be in shape. And then jiu-jitsu kind of helps that. It's kind of like, I was already kind of like that, but jiu-jitsu gives me a reason to do that. So I like when you guys were talking to Jerry, like, I don't really want to drink if I'm going to go to an open mat. You know, I totally get that. 'Cause I feel the same way. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm really bloated. Oh, I'm moving slow. Oh, my joints hurt. Those types of things. I don't want that. So it's like I try to be pretty, but I'm not like overly extreme. It's just being pretty mindful. Especially as I get older, like I do notice like when my joints hurt more or less. Yeah.
So is there certain like lifts at the gym that you're doing that, you know, target jiu-jitsu more, or are you just trying to do like an all-around body workout?
Yeah, like I don't know much about like if sports specific conditioning or those types of things really helps or hinders. I think just general weightlifting generally helps. Now I'm sure if I had like a really awesome trainer that was like a jiu-jitsu black belt and was like, this is what's worked for Cabrinha, I'd be like, all right, let's do it, you know. But otherwise, it's not like I'm going to try to like bring my gi and do like, you know, gi rows or something, you know. I just think like general weightlifting is generally helped me overall.
Yeah. I just started getting into like the weightlifting, you know, probably since like high school. Like I didn't really do anything, like I just had no real reason to, but probably in the last, I don't know how long we've had this stuff in the garage, like 6 months maybe to a year, and slowly getting into it, but like more and more dialing it in. Like some days, like I'll be like, all right, well I train, you know, before it was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then open mats on at least one day on the weekend. If not both days on the weekend, and then I'll lift on like Tuesday and Thursday then, and whatever day I don't do an open mat, or just do Tuesday and Thursday if I do 2 open mats. And now it's like, you know, I'll train Wednesday, Friday, and then 1 open mat on the weekend sometimes, and I'll just lift on like the off days. But now I'm like, all right, well, I'll train Tuesday and Friday and then open mat. I'll just lift those days. Like I'm already going to be sore. I'm already going to be moving around. I'll be somewhat like body will be warmed up. I'll just make it a really big workout day, and then I'll just have the other days as off days. It's just really trying to figure out like what's working in and get into some sort of routine.
I used to, when I was doing comp class a lot at AOJ, so I'd have like 3 hours in a row, like 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and then sometimes like a 4th class, like no gi or something. So that those days like were wrecking me, and so I would try to just do like mobility, like just like body weight mobility, just to move around at night, just so it's not like I just like shrank into myself. I do pretty much work out every day, but it's not like I'm sitting there like grinding out like max reps or max sets, I guess, on anything. Well, you know, like on days where I trained real hard, right? So like Monday I teach generally, and I don't like train super hard. So like Monday I do squats, and so like I know like Tuesday I might be a little sore, but Wednesday I'll really start feeling it. So like knowing like Wednesday, I might be a little sore on Wednesday. So Wednesday I might dial it back a little bit on training, but like Tuesday might be a little bit of a tougher day, and so on Tuesdays more maybe be like back, where like I almost never get sore or something. And so and then kind of periodization or breaking it up that way. And then on the weekends I don't train as much, maybe open mat, but open mats are so dicey. Like sometimes it's like, rolled with a blue belt, drilled a little bit, and then other days it's like, well, I had 5 black belts try to kill me, you know. So that one's really hard to predict. So I will kind of front load that with like sled pushes, some more power stuff, functional training a little bit, and then go to those open mats and be like, well, we'll see how I feel Sunday, and then kind of go from there.
I've been taking, just because like, you know, the most recent knee injuries, been taking most of the open mats off. I went for the first time in probably about a month, maybe over a month, last Sunday, and then, you know, I went to AGA, and it was such a good one. Like it was all 3 other black belts, another brown belt that was a little bit smaller than me, but probably 150, 160 pounds, so not too much smaller, and then a decent size, probably about the size of Ben, a purple belt. So he had like long hair. And then there was a white belt there too. I believe it was a white belt. If not, I'm sorry. But so it was a really good one. So not a super crowded one. It was just a nice one that was just like 5 to 6 upper belts. And they were just great rolls in. And, you know, it's a nice safe open mat. I didn't have to worry about anything or anyone I didn't know or or whatnot. But so I'll probably go there again today, and just hope for that. Cross my fingers it's the same type of turnout.
Like 2-3 weeks ago, maybe the week before you went, I went with Dylan and Elliot, and there was like Dylan, Elliot, me, and Jerry for a long time, and then that one purple belt, I believe.
Yeah.
And we were just like kind of drilling stuff, and I don't think any of us rolled. We just like drilled stuff and was like sharing techniques, so that was cool. But it definitely wasn't like, oh man, I'm glad I shouldn't have worked out earlier. It was more just like, it was super chill and fun.
Yeah.
But then like last week, I don't know, I just didn't have the motivation. But for whatever reason, Sundays, like I always like want to, and then I'm like, nah.
That's how that's how I've been lately too. Like I was like, all right, my knees feel all right. Like I want to, but then it gets down to it, I'm like, but I probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, all right, well that's okay. Like I should be like, dictating myself, like, and being like smart about it when I do go. And if I'm not feeling like quite up to it, like why would I push myself and force myself to go? And it's like the same thing on like Mondays. So it's like, well, I wake up, I make coffee, like I let the dogs out, and I'm like, but do I need to go? But and like I said, right now it's just trying to figure out like a situation or like a schedule or like a routine that works for me, like something I can be happy with and settle into, and just like make it like more comfort and not like force myself to go every day. Because like if black belt was like right around the corner, I'd be like, all right, we're gonna make one more big push, but like I felt like the last 5 I guess like we said, almost 6 years, like it's just been like a 6-year push to like just get to black belt as fast as possible. Like let's get the blue belt, let's get the purple belt, let's get the brown belt. And now it's just like just kind of like taking a step back and like looking back in hindsight, I'm like, all right, well, it's been 1 year of stripe of brown belt for me. This isn't like a major push right now. Like we're just going to coast, and we're just going to make it, and we're going to settle in and find something good that I'm happy with.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like do that push. I mean, not me necessarily, but like, and they get to the black belt, they they're always like, you've talked about like you've chased the belt a little bit, and so they chase the belt, and then they get to that black, and they're like, well, now what? And so again, like you're trying to build these habits of like, okay, what are the what's your habits of like going to the gym, whether it be working out or going and training, you know? So you're trying to build these habits that are part of your routine, part of your life, part of your lifestyle. And then second is like you're finding, and that's what I advocated earlier, is like just finding something that you enjoy about jiu-jitsu that keeps you going, so that way it's not like I'm just trying to impress Roger, or I'm just trying to get into the stripe. It's like, what does Mark enjoy about it, and what does Mark enjoy long term? Because at black belt, that incentive will be gone to chase the belt, like
exactly.
And so it's like, as long as you can find those motivations that are somewhat intrinsic, like, oh, I just love teaching, or I love just playing around or finding a new thing to do, or whatever it may be, then that's going to keep you on the mats much longer than chasing something. And so as long as like I'm just telling you advice, like knowing you, is like, as long as you're trying to find that like nice balance of what's going to keep you wanting to be interested in that beyond like an extrinsic kind of carrot, then I think that's going to be longer term helpful to you. Yeah.
All right, man. So we're going to wrap this up. You want to tell people if they want to train with you, take a class with you, where they can find you, social media?
Man, my schedule is really crazy.
Good luck explaining that one.
See me, great. But yeah, my Instagram is WhiteWolfBJJ on Instagram. That's just based on at the time when I was at Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu, Game of Thrones was a big deal, and so he didn't know I was from Alaska, so I had to call him, and he's like, what zip code is 907? It's like, oh, Alaska. And he's like, oh, you're from Alaska? And so he's like, oh, okay. And then that's how White Wolf came up. So nonetheless, so it's White Wolf BJJ. I kind of leaned into it a little bit, and I post stuff about once a week. And otherwise, I'm not really on Facebook too much or anything else. Not as like Dave Garness is like, oh yeah, we can make fun of him. Dave Garness is on nothing.
He's on nothing. Yeah. I will say your Instagram, like the stuff, like obviously like just like the updates are cool, but the posts you actually like write about and make like a long written thing about, they've been great. So
I've been trying to think about different things that like, now that like I've been thinking about the journey a lot of like, how the heck can like a 40-year-old like get his black, get a black belt in like 6.5 years and not be like just destroyed? And then what are like these thought processes I've seen, both just like success in my like 9 to 5, and then how I've seen those like translate, be the same in the success in like jiu-jitsu. So I've been trying to write that up for people.
Yeah, it's been great. Like I said, I enjoy reading the posts more than just like the pictures.
Yeah,
the typical
pictures, like,
Instagram pictures. Yeah. So man, great job. And then obviously the podcast is on Spotify and YouTube at the Mediocre Grappler Podcast, and then I'm on Instagram and Facebook at the Mediocre Grappler or Mark A. Robinson II. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.